Light Reading with Terri Kovalcik. Today I am going to read to you Junior Hunters at Large, A Year of Sportsmanship, Volume 1, and it is available on any Amazon website. So, I wanted to read to you Chapter 2, Charlie Encounters the Mighty Black Bear. Now, when I wrote this is actually just wove the fiction, but personal experiences are involved in this, and it was pretty scary. So, but it's bear season, and everybody's talking about bears, and I have this thing for bears, and I like bear hunting. And I bought my bear tag, but I got to see sows with cubs, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, so even if I don't take a bear, then I can treat it to maintain a global ecosystem, because I believe in that. So anyway, so Charlie encounters the mighty black bear. Spring break finally arrived, and on Saturday morning, Dad woke Charlie up at 5 and told him to get ready for the big adventure. Charlie didn't want to get out of bed, but he did, after all. Even if the destination was still making him sick as a dog, at least there, hopefully, would be a coffee shop drive-thru for bagels with cream cheese and a hot chocolate before he had to face his ultimate demise. It was a family hunting tradition. Besides, maybe if he packed garlic bagel this time, his breath would be enough to scare away any creature coming near him, even the black bear. By the time he had finished getting his short shoes on, Dad had everything loaded into the truck. Charlie yawned as he shut the front door. So, shall we have our bagels with plain cream cheese and coffee? Dad thumped him on the shoulder with a smile. Dad, I don't drink coffee. Charlie rolled his eyes. Dad chuckled. Hot chocolate it is. Vic's coffee shop, was the first stop as they got their breakfast of champions. Well, not really, but close enough, right? And headed to a hunting area that had clear-cut hillsides just right for finding all the bears that were lurking inside. So where are we going? Charlie worked hard to swallow the last bite of his bagel, a roll of dough that was now sitting like a stone in his queasy stomach. We're going just beyond the Murray River. Last year there was a monstrous bear along the one of the logging roads out there. I'm not sure if he's still there, but we should check it out, Dad replied. Aren't there any other places that hold bears? Charlie asked fearfully, thinking of the stories told about what that one mighty bear Dad spoke about. Hunters have been trying for him for a long time, and now there were stories cropping up about how he was a spirit of the forest. Yeah, I know this one logging road that might have one or two. If we don't find any there, we'll head to another area, Dad explained between sips of his half-French vanilla, half-coffee combo. It took about 45 minutes to get to the road that Dad wanted to walk down, the quickest 45 minutes that Charlie had ever seen. It just flew by in seconds as his fear grew bigger. Charlie didn't want to get out of the safety of the truck, so Dad drove further down the road, with eyes peeled, searching for any furry shadow. Charlie stared at his dad, knowing the hunter mode when he saw it. The trucks came to a stop. Come on, Charlie, let's go. Fine, Charlie grumbled, knowing there was no way of getting out of this situation. Opening the truck door, he stepped to the ground on slightly quivering legs and loaded the bullet clip into his .308 lever-action rifle. Putting the safety on, scared that with his trembling legs, he might shoot himself in the foot. He followed Dad down the road. Every couple of feet, he looked over his shoulder to make sure a bear wasn't sneaking up behind. His heart beat faster when he heard a branch break behind the dense, leafy foliage. He quickened his steps, looking from side to side, hoping no creature would jump out of the woods. In fact, he was in such a state that Charlie thought that even a squirrel would have him running for cover. Dad stopped and crouched down, pointing to a bear 300 yards away. Charlie simply stared at the bears through the scope, his breath caught as two small furry objects bounded toward the bear. It's a sow in her cups. Let's leave him alone, Dad whispered, turning around to allow Charlie to walk in front of him back to the truck. Dad glanced back occasionally at the small family to make sure the sow hadn't heard their approach. Charlie unloaded his clip and opened the action on his barrel, removing the bullet and placed it back into the clip. He slid his rifle back into his case, hopped in the truck, and waited for Dad. Now that wasn't so bad, Dad asked with a grin. I guess not, Charlie replied hesitantly. There weren't any bears behind us, so it was safe. Dad started the truck and turned around, heading up Black Bear Road. It was almost 9 o'clock when the road led to a large logged-off area where bear droppings were mixed in the gravel, visible signs that the beast they were searching for walked this particular road. Dad chuckled. "Hey, Charlie, why the bear crap on the road?" He shook his head at another one of Dad's lame attempts at hunting humor. He sighed. "I don't know. To let you know he was there." Dad smiled. Charlie groaned, and from then on, every time they saw bear evidence, Dad held up his hand in victory and cheered, "Whoop! There it is!" The juvenile trees that by the ditch made perfect hiding places for a bear, yet they spotted none as they drove another couple of miles. There were more territorial signs, but Charlie kept breathing a sigh of relief when no actual creature showed itself to Dad. He stared at the hillside, trying to pick out the bear amongst the blackened tree stems, but thankfully saw no signs of life. "Hey, Charlie, why the bear crap on the road?" "Dad, please." "Duh, piss off the hunter," Dad chuckled. Charlie groaned and continued to stare out the window, looking for the non-existent bear. By this time, all he wanted to do was go home. It was almost noon, and they hadn't seen a single bear that was legal to take. But Dad kept driving, heading down a small hill into a gorge and back up again, and when suddenly Charlie saw a small, brown animal moving up a bank on the other side, 400 yards away. "Bear!" Charlie shouted. Without thinking, or maybe it was just to get away from Dad and his bad jokes, Charlie opened the door and loaded his rifle while Dad stopped and stared at it through the binoculars. "Looks good. Let's go," Dad replied. They walked along the left-hand side of the road behind the brown object, passing a small creek that ran down the hill. Coming out of the culvert, the deafening noise of water churning completely covered the sound of their footsteps. The leafy foliage by the ditch wasn't as thick as the other sections as they drove along, but Charlie was feeling a little easier. He only looked behind every 10 feet or so. It seemed like it took forever until they got to the area where he had spotted the animal. Dad sent him a hand signal for Charlie to be extra quiet. The bear was going to be close. Charlie's heart beat faster. His legs felt rubbery, his knees knocked together, and his arms were shaking, but he followed along. He was actually beginning to really like the anticipation. Dad stopped 20 feet from the original sighting and searched the small patch of willows surrounding the 6-inch tall grassy area. Charlie looked back and then to the right, but he didn't see any bears. An image flashed through his mind as if one of the pictures from that awful book came across his vision. He remembered reading about a lady who had been taking rock specimens when a bear brutally attacked her. She was still living, but now had plastic arms. Charlie shivered uncontrollably at that memory. Quickly looking left, Charlie almost jumped into the air when he saw a porcupine on his hind legs using his paws to eat a piece of poplar bark. Its light golden quills were scattered over its shoulders with a dark chestnut brown lining underneath. "Psst, Dad." "Oh, there it is, Dad," whispered cheerfully. The porcupine shook its body, making his quills stand up on him. "What do you mean?" Charlie asked. Dad laughed. "I knew it was a porcupine the whole time. Seriously, stalked a porcupine." "What?" Charlie screeched. Dad softly chuckled as the porcupine, bored with the humans in his midst, dropped to all fours and waddled as fast as his little legs could carry him to the clump of willows. Partially protecting him from the intruders, Charlie was upset, and then he got mad. All that fear for nothing. He stalked back to the truck in silence. After they put the rifles away, Dad drove up to where the porcupine was. "What are you doing?" Charlie asked. "I want to take some pictures," Dad responded enthusiastically. "I'll gently coax it out to you and you take a few snaps. It'll be great for a memory book." Charlie rolled his eyes, knowing that the picture would probably be used to tease him for the rest of his life. That the only frightening creature he found on his black bear hunting trip was a tiny porcupine. Of course, it wasn't exactly a safe animal either, even though the porcupine was a lot smaller than any bear. Charlie remembered that porcupines had 30,000 quills, and although they can't spray the quills directly at you, he still didn't like the idea of being struck with me. "Come on, Charlie," Dad urged, stopping the truck beside the clump of willows. Sighing, Charlie reluctantly got out of the truck and turned on the digital camera as Dad walked over the willows and flushed the animal from his safety net. The porcupine waddled toward the truck, and Charlie took a picture. Soon, the porcupine had made his journey around the truck, with Charlie walking behind him like he was the paparazzi after Justin Bieber, and began climbing the shale hillside to escape from the obnoxious humans. Charlie took one last photo. Justin Bieber was my editor's choice. Don't ask me why. I never listen to him. Dad reviewed them and said proudly, "Now he can show everyone the huge bear he stopped." "Dad," Charlie griped, "can we go home now? I want to check out just a couple more areas," Dad replied. Charlie's bagel screamed from inside his stomach. "Figures, this is just never going to end. It's not going to kill us to drive around some more, unless, of course, you want to walk everywhere." Charlie mumbled, knowing that he did not want to be out of the large metal truck for long. He knew that porcupines were not the only creatures out here, and he certainly did not want to take a picture of anything larger. Fine. Dad turned the truck around to begin their long journey back. Some nature was truly beautiful to see and exciting as Charlie saw a bull moose trotting through a small clear-cut landing, and Dad pointed out all the Ukrainian brush cutters he could find, more commonly called squirrels by everyone else. Charlie liked watching the wildlife from inside the truck, but he was tired of hunting and he wanted to go home. After they drove another 5 miles on a different road, he gave up all hope that this experience would ever end, so he closed his eyes and he went to sleep. Dad's cheering woke him up 30 minutes later. "Charlie! Charlie, there's a bear!" Charlie practically jumped out of the seat and stared out the front window to see a bear on the right-hand side of the road coming out of the ditch 200 yards away. Loading his rifle carefully, Dad pulled over the truck, and the cool air hit Charlie's flush, fresh from sleep cheeks. Dad stood by his side, stalking the animal with him as he stared through the binoculars. Dad sighed. "No, he ain't big enough. He's just a little 4.5-footer. You don't want him." Charlie got extremely grumpy. "Why the heck did you wake him up then? Wake me up then." "Charlie, if you're sleeping, you won't see anything." "I wasn't seeing any bears while I was awake, so what difference does it make?" Charlie grumbled. "Can we please just go home?" "Just 2 more places, okay?" That was his Hunter of the Year, Dad. "Never say die." "Whatever," Charlie muttered. "Man, you're really grumpy today, aren't you?" "Dad, I told you I don't want to be out here," Charlie snapped. Shaking his head, Dad turned left onto another deactivated logging road and immediately spotted bear evidence. Charlie took a deep breath, just waiting to be annoyed again. It didn't take long. "Hey, Charlie, why the bear crap on the road?" "I don't know, Dad. Why?" Charlie drawled. "'Cause he didn't know how to spell his name," Charlie laughed. Unlike the others, Charlie actually found this joke kind of amusing, and he laughed along with Dad. In slightly better spirits, Charlie searched for a bear, knowing that not only would finding one bring him home sooner, but also because it was Dad's way of bonding. He wanted this father-son moment, so Charlie was going to try his best. Spotting one across the road, he quickly pointed and yelled, "There's one!" Before the truck had come to a full stop, Charlie jumped out and loaded his rifle and left Dad in the dust. He so wanted this day to be over. Walking along the roadside as quietly as possible, Charlie did his best to make sure that the bear couldn't see him or hear his approach. His heart pounded uncontrollably as he walked swiftly and silently, getting to within 100 yards of the bear. He lay down on the 4-foot-high dirt mound beside the ditch, put the scope on the bear, and looked at its ears. They looked huge in comparison to its head. The bear started to cross the road. It didn't look overly large, or even the same size as the bear target he had practiced on. This one was a nice light brown, and suddenly Charlie decided that it would be best to let this one live so it could become a bigger bear. Having the chance at a longer leg, Charlie thought he still had plenty of years ahead of him to grow and even make his own family one day. Dad was in the truck waiting for him with a great big smile on his face. "Great job stalking that bear, Charlie," Dad praised. "Why didn't you come with me?" "Don't worry. If anything happened, I'd take that bear from here. I could take that bear from here if it was absolutely necessary," Dad ruffled his hair. "Besides, it looked like you really wanted to do it alone." "No," Charlie muttered. "I'm proud of you," Dad smiled. "Let's drive a little further down this road, and then we'll go check out another area where I met up with a bear last year," Dad suggested. "Then we'll call it a day." They drove to the end of the road, spotting mule deer does with their fawns, and 2 cow moose grazing on the edges of the landings, but still no bear in sight. Dad turned onto the main road and then drove across a small bridge that spanned the Murray River, heading towards the village 50 miles from the junction. Dad turned right, once again, away from home, and Charlie groaned. "Just one more place, okay, Charlie?" Dad pleaded. Charlie's belly ached, but he just nodded. In this part of Dad's hunting area, they passed Murray Lake and moved past the last of the residential area. The 6700 road was an old logging road that hadn't been driven on in a very long time. Come here. Which meant the terrible bouncing began to really aggravate the pesky bagel in Charlie's stomach that just wouldn't say die. As they drove very slowly down the hardened gravel road, trying to avoid all the ruts that looked like caverns, the young willows and poplar trees branched out over the road, making it almost impossible for them to see. Soon they were going around a corner, dodging small boulders scattered over the road. On Charlie's side there was a deep gorge, which he tried not to stare at, wondering if one of the mighty poplar branches would end up pushing the truck into its depths. They went around the bend and continued up the hill to the other side. Charlie couldn't see a thing because it was so dense with trees. There was no way he was going to get out of the truck and walk around here no matter what Dad said. Way too many hiding places for a bear. It was if Dad could hear his vow. "Yeah, we're coming into the area where I was woofed by a bear last year." Charlie was suddenly frightened. He didn't know what being woofed by a bear was all about, but he sure didn't like the sound of it. Dad saw the bear's territorial markings. The bear scat was the size of a pop can in diameter, about 9 inches around and 5 inches tall. "Dad," Charlie swallowed hard, "that looks like a huge bear." He shifted uncomfortably on the seat. "Yep, it sure was the last time I saw it," Dad replied. "Well, I'm going to get out and take a look around. Are you with me?" Charlie shook his head adamantly. "Fine." Charlie felt a twinge, knowing that his dad had gone from proud to disappointed in only minutes. Dad loaded his .300 Winchester short magnum rifle, put the safety on, and closed the truck door as quietly as possible. He cautiously walked along the road, looking at the area on the left-hand side. Near the base of the mountain, dark green grass grew just below the dirt ledge. One dead tree stood in front of some logs on the ground, and in front, young poplar trees conjugated together, making the area very thick. A scattering of juvenile pine trees touched each other, as if clasping their hands to hide a secret beast that was hidden just behind them. Dad looked back and motioned for Charlie to get out of the truck, but Charlie was still shaking his head. Once the look came across Dad's face, the father-son hunter gaze, Charlie sighed, got out of the truck carefully, and he made his way slowly over to Dad. Suddenly, a loud, powerful, and almost deafening made all the trees around them begin to shake. Charlie's heart beat so fast that he felt like he was about to fall out of his chest and onto the ground. His feet were suddenly stuck in cement, even though his brain was screaming at him to get back into the truck. "What's that?" Charlie whispered, truly hoping that his dad would say it's some kind of rig the loggers used to move trees. "We were just woofed," answered with the same howl. Charlie flinched. "What'd you do that for?" The bear responded, as if answering Charlie's question. Charlie trembled as his dad snorted and woofed some more. He suddenly heard the bear move, as if it was coming closer, and to carry on the frightening conversation in person. Charlie tried to figure out where it was, but the brush was far too thick. The bear woofed at them again. "I'm going in after it," Dad stated. "Are you going to stay here?" Charlie nodded, absolutely speechless. Dad made his way over to the edge of the road and took a small jump over the water-filled ditch. Making his way up the rocky 7-foot hill, he started walking towards the spot where he last heard the bear woof. A few moments later, Charlie couldn't see Dad anymore. He heard the bear woof again, louder than the last couple times, and was terrified. He knew it was getting closer, but he still couldn't see it. He heard Dad woof at the bear. While nervously pacing back and forth, Charlie looked down at the puddle of mud he was just about to step in. The bear's front paw was smack dab in the middle. Shuddering, Charlie bent down and put his small hand over the imprint. He knew that the one they had in the living room was a 7.5-footer, and the front pad was 5.5 inches wide, probably weighing a good 600 pounds. It was what Dad called a 12-sandwich-eating bear. But this bear that Dad was after was even bigger. Charlie stood in stunned silence, almost jumping out of his skin when a grouse began to beat his wings rapidly. He didn't feel safe. As the hair on the back of his neck stood on end, he looked around. More crashing erupted in the bush, as Dad once again woofed at the bear, and the bear responded. Charlie started whispering, "Oh my God, Dad is going to die. Oh my God, Dad is going to die. Don't let Dad die." The mantra kept going through his head as he paced back and forth what seemed like an eternity. Charlie was in sheer agony listening to the woofs being exchanged. He started crying. "Please don't let my dad die. He can't die. Please don't. Please let him live. I don't want my dad to die." The tears streamed down his face and fell onto his rifle, making him cry even more. Knowing that if a bear were to spawn him right now, he would surely die. He couldn't hold the rifle still long enough to take a killing shot, and he was shaking so badly that his legs were like glue. Charlie wanted Dad out of the woods, but Dad wasn't coming out. Loud crashings came from the forest of horror. After 10 agonizingly long minutes, Charlie was a complete wreck listening to Dad and the bear. He fell to the ground and cried harder. "Please don't die, Dad. Come back so we can go home. I want to go home. Please come back. Dad, please." And that would be the end of the chapter. Cliffhanger.